Okay, then let's kick this off now. If you have questions later on, feel free to drop me a message in the chat. I try to be here in the afternoon as well a bit. If I don't get back to you, or if you want to talk offline to me, also feel free to reach out to me. And with that, I'm getting that started. So my talk is called Welcome to Management, Tips and Tricks for Junior Leaders. And a bit more about me, because then you also know why I came up with this talk is like, so I'm Andrea. I'm a tester since 2011 already. And last year I jumped into a role in leadership. That was quite an interesting experience for me personally. I just fulfilled my first year and I'm still there. That's was my first goal to set, to survive the first year. And here I am. I'm working in the maritime industry. I'm mainly testing the container stowage. I'm a reader, I'm a tea drinker, and I'm a traveler. And below you find my social media handles in case you want to reach out to me. And with that, let's get started into one of my average days as a new team lead, very junior in the role. It's a Monday morning. I am happy and cheerful walking to my office and turning on my computer. Of course, a nice cup of tea is next to my desk. And I see a couple of notifications popping up, some unread emails, and some people who want to talk to me. I'm also going through my calendar, what is on for the day. And more about the day in general, I will walk you through my average day today. So I'm getting started, and there is already the first message. Congrats, QA management lady. That was a cheerful, nice message from one of my favorite office people. And that was really good to know that there are some people who will have my back. I was promoted in the role within my company. I'm working now for years, and I was a bit tense or curious how everyone will react upon the changes. Like, how does my old team react that I will leave them and head into a leading role? How will be the relationship with my old boss continue? And mostly importantly to me was how will the new team of testers I should start leading react that I'm now their new manager? So it was really nice to have some folks and some allies in the office. The next message is a bit less cheerful. That is from one of my new team members. The week before, I scheduled regular one-on-one check-ins to see how everyone's doing. Apparently, this team member didn't want to talk to me and had nothing to discuss. And also wasn't really interested in having one-on-ones. So that was on my very first weeks, and I was a bit surprised, honestly, to get this kind of a feedback. And I was not really sure how to react in the beginning, initially. So it took me some time, it took me some breathing minutes, what to do, because I was pondering about several questions. Should I just do what the old manager did and don't have the meetings because the team member doesn't find them important? Should I force my will in order to order them to have the meeting with me? So I was pondering a bit about between the questions, and I needed some time. So let's pause this question for the moment. I will come to that later on, and let's check the next message. That is in one of our product channels, and a developer just implemented the latest changes he was asked to do and was now asking for a code review and was not quite sure how the testing should be gone. On the letter, I'm not sure how to test on the sentence. I was like almost jumping in because I felt like that's my trigger word, because hey, I'm the tester in the room, and more than that, I'm now the test lead. So questions like how can something be tested should probably be answered by a tester. And I want to jump on the question and give them some feedback. But guess what? The dev lead was faster than me in replying and telling them, well, it has no UI impact, so they really not need to do anything in testing here. That did not really fit to my personal beliefs about testing, and we needed to have a conversation regarding that. Also, coming back to the message before, to skip the meeting. We also had a conversation about why the person wants to skip the meeting, and we came to a kind of conclusion that worked for both of us. So my first lessons I really learned on the first weeks in the job. You need to be prepared to be doubted and tested. There will be people who maybe think, okay, you have a new title, but what's more than that? And just because you have a title, it does not mean that it necessarily helps you to get your things done. So I found myself on this road a couple of times where I got raised elbows or questions regarding the lines like, and why should we now listen to you? So prepared to be doubted and tested. And if you realize that someone crosses your boundaries, your limits, or just does not match up with your values, start to have a conversation with them. I try to explain what kind of testing we want to drive in the future, what kind of quality idea we have in the team, or the idea I want to bring to this testing in the office. So most of that times that works. Those conversations can be a bit tough, though. I'm not going to deny that, but if you stay firm to your point, and also if you bring the message across in a kindly manner and a friendly manner, I think that is a fair way to approach then the people. So that was my first lesson. The second one was that we now started with the team meeting. So that's a little reminder. And before I tell you more about the meetings and how they are working for us or not working, I'd like to introduce quickly the team. So we are a team of 6 testers. We are located on 2 different continents, in 2 different time zones, and we are from 2 very different cultural backgrounds. In total, the 6 of us have 3 different native languages. In general, we all communicate in English. That is all our second language in order to be able to be understood by everyone. So my first team meetings mostly went like this picture indicates. I was sitting there explaining ideas, updates, share stuff from the leadership team, highlight the new interesting testing projects which will come to us in the future, sharing maybe also ongoing informations about plannings, and my team remained pretty silent. In fact, it was a bit like hosting podcasts disguised as meetings. And I was started to get desperate. I was asking myself, why do the folks don't reply, and why don't they speak up to me? I was not sure if it's the technology. Do we have maybe a too big time lag in our meetings because we host them online? We are remote in that sense. Is it maybe a cultural thing my idea, my expectation, or how to run a team meeting is culturally so different than from other team members? Or if it's maybe me, and they just don't trust me, and there's no psychology safety in the team. And in a nutshell, building relationships is super hard. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of patience, and I'm not really a patient person. And it takes also a lot of sharing of your own, especially it's getting even more difficult if you're in a remote situation. So I started to get desperate, and I was seeking some help from the community, and I came across some nice idea asking just random questions, not too personal, and asking a bunch of different questions, and everyone could just select what they want to answer. And that really helped us. So we learned each other a bit more to get to know from the personal side. So now we knew who are the Pokemon Go players, who are the people who like to enjoy a movie night, and who are the persons who want to travel the world. With that, our relationships started to ease up. We got to know each personal, we could value each other more, and we started another project, which is a little snack exchange. So the team got just little bags with local candies, And I got on return this nice fluffy pink cat, which is now living on my office desk. From that on, things started to get easier. Also, other team members started volunteering to do activities in the meetings, but it really takes some time and is also some work. And that was really tough learning for me. By the way, there are some of the feedback I got that was pretty well received, I guess. So that's nice to see. And with that, relationships are hard and they need continuous work. So the next on my list is, meanwhile, while I was in the meeting, some more notifications, meetings requests piled up, and also some people stopped by my desk if I could have just a couple of minutes. So I get better all of them sorted, but at the same time, I cannot do everything at the same time. So I initially, in the very early weeks and months, I had this constant tension between fear of missing out because I really wanted to participate in all the meetings, got to know the things, be involved in updates, in decision-making meetings, getting also the possibility to advocate for testing and quality in general product meetings. And at the same time, sometimes I just came out of a very pointless meeting, which could have been an email that no one ever has written. So I had this constant tension, and I needed to learn to say no. And I needed also to understand that deciding what not to do is equally important as to decide what to do. And that's a really tough thing to do because it's really hard to say no if you hear about an interesting project you really want to do, but realistically speaking, you don't have the time for it. What helped me here is to allow myself and also allow everyone in the team the rule of the feet, just to go out of a meeting if it does not provide any purpose, any learning, or any opportunity for you to share things. I know that's a privilege and we can't have this all the time. I also have meetings where I just cannot sneak out, but whenever I have, I do that. I use the Eisenhower matrix for prioritizing my task, and currently I'm learning about stakeholder management. So learning who are the people I need to keep very close and very closely tied, informed to me, and which I can have a bit more a Slack connection to. That releases some spaces in my calendar and gave me also some breathing time to do the things which I then have to do now as a new team lead, and there's a bunch I have to learn. So with that, this was an intense morning, so I'm ready for the break. But I'm wondering, why do I have 2 reminders on my calendar at the same time? I'm pretty sure that that was not planned. It took me a second, and then I realized that on the weekend we had this daylight saving time change. And I just learned last year that this concept is not universally applied through the globe. I know you have the British summertime and the British wintertime, if you call it like that. We have here in continental Europe, continental European time and continental European summertime. Yeah, and last year I learned in the Indian continent, that is not a thing. That screwed up all of our calendars a bit for that day. And it took us some time to readjust. And for me, it was a bit of an embarrassment learning, but it was probably very needed and useful because I learned pretty soon the context really matters. And just as another example for the context, if you see this number, 1 million, it sounds like a very big number, but it doesn't tell you much. If I add a bit more information to it, 1 million as an annual salary, and my context located in Germany, that sounds like a pretty good salary. I would take that. Sadly, I don't have that. But as a team lead, being responsible for teams located in the German country and also in India, my context is not only euros, my context is also Indian rupee. For someone who's never traveled to India, never lived there, and has no understanding feeling of the currency and what is the value for this amount of salary, it's really hard to detect if that is a really good salary or not. So I needed to reach out to people who could help me there. And the general converter in the internet, well, it says it's 11,000 euros. Someone located here in Central Europe as a tester would not be super happy with that kind of a salary per year, I would expect. But for India, I still don't know. So reaching out to folks who could help me and accepting the fact that there were probably a lot of unknowns in my life as a team lead, and that there would be certainly things I don't know about and I had to learn on the go. It can lead to a bit of embarrassment if you need to confess that, but I think as a tester, we also have this unconsciously always in the back of our mind that there might be unknowns, especially now as software. So just take this kind of knowledge, of experience with you into the leadership role will help a lot. But now finally, it's time for the lunch break. And as you already had the lunch break to rest from the learnings in the mornings and have some chat and maybe some laughter and some refreshments, so do you need to do that every day and have that regular planned? I have a calendar entry on my computer just not to forget about that, because no one really can pour from an empty cup, and that's absolutely not healthy. So fast forward, we skip the lunch break now just very quickly. When I'm back, I receive a new email from my boss asking me for some numbers. It turns out in the next days is a board meeting no one was aware of, and now suddenly we need to have some reporting available. So I'm better getting started to get it ready. Initially, when I started getting into this leadership management position, I had the idea for maybe the first 10 minutes, I will have a bit more of freedom. I don't need to have to report to the team lead of the product team anymore. I'm my own manager, and I can decide more freely what I want to do. Well, very quickly after 10 minutes, I learned that was an illusion of autonomy. There will always be some stakeholders who have some interest in what you're doing, asking you for providing numbers, asking you for providing products, asking you for providing the next release. And especially, or even if you're looking higher up in the hierarchy, if you are a director or vice president, you will probably have a CEO you need to report to. And if you're a CEO, there will be probably an advisory board or a board of directors. So my lessons learned, yes, I have more freedom in some aspects in my life and some aspects of my work, but for some tasks, I even have less freedom than before because I'm now tied to reporting deadlines for the board of directors. And while we're not talking about the perks of being junior in a leadership role and learning what is stuff people don't tell you up front and you just learn it by yourself. Some companies like to call the lowest level of management also frontline managers, because we are working still hands-on in the business, but at the same time doing some management work. And when Googling that, sometimes this idea is illustrated by a bridge. So we are building the bridges between the executive team with the visions and strategies, and boil that down and drill it down to the team members with concrete tasks and activities in order to achieve that strategy and vision. That is a nice picture, right? So we are kind of the translator in between. But the translator in between can also sometimes look like that. Because there is maybe some vision or some idea in the executive leadership team, you need to transmit that. And sometimes there might be times, there might be situations where you don't agree with what the decision is, where you don't agree with the message. And I was there. And then it feels not really like building bridges, but rather tiptoeing through a field of mines. And that can be a difficult thing. So be aware of, if you want to go into leadership or if you're just very new into that, you will have to deal with dilemma. There might be dilemmas where you need to convey a message you personally can't buy in yourself full-heartedly. There might be super difficult situations where you are between the two sides and you need to navigate through that in the best interest of your team, in the best interest of the business, and in the best interest of your customer. And also don't forget your own best interest. And with that, I'm not talking about just gaining more money, but being in a healthy and stable environment yourself. So I don't have a silver bullet to that right now, how to deal with dilemma. That depends on the situation, also on the culture, and also very much on your personality. I'm a straightforward person, and I can't really sugarcoat bad things. So I'm not really Wonka in that sense. It's not always to my favor, but at the end, I believe I do the right thing here. So, but now the morning is sorted, all the meetings are sorted, the emergency request for the board of directors is sorted. Now I have time to get back hands-on, do some real testing. There's a message from earlier from a colleague, so I'm happily dive into that. And that is something about my new job which really thrills me. I'm involved in decision processes. I can help to shape in our company how we approach quality. And I can still work hands-on and get a new shiny product, or maybe not so shiny product, as the first tester on my computer and explore it. And that's pretty much fun to have this both parts of the worlds. Meanwhile, while I'm testing, a colleague is calling me in into a call because they want to get another opinion. So from now to then, I find myself into a call with a dev and another tester. And also that is part of my reality. There's a lot of context switching happening. And it can be exhausting and tiring sometimes. Personally, it brings me a lot of joy because never a day is one like the other, and it's never boring. On the flip side, if you have this constant changes, it can lead to tiredness and exhaustion. So be aware of that you take breaks and also plan for the day if you have the autonomy of a calendar. So maybe block certain times to work without interruptions. Block a meeting room for yourself or work half a day from home if that is possible. That helps me usually to keep up with all my commitments, but don't overstretch myself. So ultimately, after the meeting, after the call is done, I bump into a colleague in the office. And since we both don't drink coffee, we are usually going for a hot chocolate. That's kind of our thing. And here's also one of the more junior person in a leadership role. So we take this opportunity to engage, chat about the latest news, and also support each other in case we have questions like, how are you sorting the things with this new holiday request? Something like that. So it's really important, not only for leaders, I think that's general good advice, to build a network, because sooner or later you will jump into tasks, hurdles, obstacles you cannot solve by yourself. And it's really good if you have some people you can reach out to where you feel safe and secure to ask the questions you maybe not dare to ask in public. And especially if you're in a leadership team, it can get really tough in the beginning because it's like it's an entire new job compared to testing. So ask for help, don't be shy, and build yourself a network. And that was kind of my day. I was rushing a bit through that, right? It's like a roller coaster. Sometimes the days can be rushing. So there's just one final thought I would like to share with you. That was a day with a lot of different activities. Some crossing my borders, stretching my comfort zone more than others. And it always seems like if you're going into management or climbing up the food chain, as it's also called, that this is a one-way direction. That you just need to look always like the next step in your career, which means climbing up the hierarchical ladder. That's also how we use it in the language. And I would like to change this perspective a bit, because if you feel yourself one day in a leadership role and you find like that's not my place to be, and I encountered this once in my being in techno since 2011, was one of the team leads. He stepped back from a leadership role, and I should not say step back, he stepped away, and started again a new role in developing, because that was the place where he find joy, where he find his purpose, and where he think he can provide the value. So considering that, I would always recommend, if you end up in management, or you feel like that's not my place to be anymore, don't forget about that. You can always find yourself another way. And I hope I will do that too once I feel like that's not my place anymore, in case that ever happens. I don't know right now. So my final thoughts: if you're unhappy with where you are not a tree. You can move. Unless you can be Groot, of course, then be Groot, because he's just particularly awesome. So with that, that's it. Thank you so much. If you have questions, I think we have maybe a couple of minutes before you need to head to the next session.
All right, do we have any questions for Andrea, or are we just gonna go straight out to a break now? Questions for Andrea, going once?
What does Andrea think of home working, managing staff at home?
What does Andrea think of home working?
That's the question.
In general, I think that's not a bad thing to do. I see a lot of companies have nowadays the idea that we all need to return full-time to the office. I personally think that is a tricky thing, because people, I mean, we showed all the companies in the pandemic that the world still continues, that we still ship software, that we still develop new stuff. So if that is something which really helps you to be helpful and supportive for your company, and also allows you to juggle your own life in a better way, I think that's a good way to do. Of course, we have here in my company, we have a hybrid mode. It's really nice to connect with some colleagues every now and then for a barbecue, or for the bigger meetings, if you then join into the office. That's how we do it here. I mean, half of my team is working from home because they're on a different continent.